Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Stephanie, for that introduction. And I'm really delighted to be here today. I feel like I'm among old friends. I know many of you in this room. In all my years here in this Lancaster community, I've worked with a number of you on projects, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation today. I would also say that one of the key issues that you're supposed to never do is, apologize before you start speaking. But I want to let you know that there are several of my board members in the room today. So in some ways, it's my annual evaluation time, and here's my biggest fear. I'm going to talk to you today, and my bosses are sitting in this room, and it's going to create this really awkward dynamic. I'm just kidding you. Let's go here with a personal story. I think some of you might enjoy hearing how I ended up going from this basically restaurant entrepreneur, building restaurants all over central Pennsylvania, in many cases working with developers or being a developer myself, on this journey to now working to save trees and, to make for sure that we preserve natural lands. Doesn't that sound to you like a little bit of a juxtaposition, going from one to the other? Well, I will tell you that it is. And there is a few key points that I want to make just for you to understand that journey for me, the choices that I made. So let's go back to my Isaac's hat there. Most of you know that I probably have deep Mennonite roots in this community. And Mennonites have this incredible thing they call guilt. I don't think it's any different than Catholic guilt. I don't think it's any different than Jewish guilt. But one of the things that I've always had in my DNA was a love of this community and its land in particular. And if you count around to the restaurants that I built in Lancaster County, and there are 8 of them, 7 went into recycled buildings. These are buildings that were already built, and I had such a passion for conserving land that I made for sure that I built those restaurants on existing shopping centers, and we did backfill on those. So places like Granite Run and Greenfield and the places that you know all around town, Strasburg and the other locations all are that way. So this has always been a part of who I am, and I always thought that we really, really need to do a better job in conserving natural lands. The second thing that is part of this journey story that I want to tell you about and share with you is the transition that you can have in your life when you spend a lifetime, and this is a confession, okay? When you spend a lifetime in a job where your passion and your business career are not in alignment. So the truth of the matter is, I backed into being a restaurateur in this community. I never studied business. I never wanted to really be a businessman, but I ended up being in the restaurant business because I am an entrepreneur, but I didn't really want to do it that way. So I spent 31 years in this business growing a restaurant chain, and while I had success and while I had fun, I never felt real passion for that business the way some people do. I was good at hospitality, I was good at motivating employees, I was good at bringing people together to create a common goal, which was feeding people and making money, okay? But I never had passion. So when I got tired of that and I fired myself, okay, and I could do that, I hit the pause button. And what ended up happening is I ended up finding the Conservancy. And all of a sudden, I have this new wind in my sail that is truly remarkable, because all of a sudden what I'm doing and my passion are in alignment. And I will tell you, when that happens in your professional life, when that happens in your career, there is really magic that comes. There's a desire to get up in the morning. There is an excitement that is in your step every single day. And I just love being a part of the Conservancy and focusing on our natural lands in Lancaster County and what we can do to protect what we love so dearly, which is this community that we have. So that was just a little bit of a story to fill in some of the time here about how I made this journey and what I'm doing. So I'm being the CEO of the Conservancy. I'm working 50 to 60 hours a week, and we're taking an organization that was pretty much flatlined for a number of years, Ralph Goodnow, our former CEO, had been ill for a number of years and the organization wasn't going anywhere. And we're going to turn this organization around with my board, and we're going to make a truly exceptional organization. But before I tell you about the Conservancy, I want to share with you what's on my heart. So please don't judge me, but I'm going to go from what I was doing at Isaac's, making a profit, to attempting to be a prophet today, okay? My father was a preacher, so you're going to have to let me do this with you and try and relax and go along for the ride. But my friends, I have some warnings for you. Lancaster County is in the bullseye of a place that people want to live. We are at this great crossroads where we have this enormously wonderful rural landscape that is out beyond the cities. And we have this large amount of protected land. And we have an incredible place with a great train station. And people are starting to notice. When we win a small town award in Lidditz, or we win an award for here, and you start to see it, the drip, drip, drip that Lancaster is a great place to live, the word is getting out. And so what we have here is that we see these trends emerging, and they scare the living daylights out of me. I don't have to tell you what's great, but I just want to refresh your memory. We actually have great roads here, okay? I have restaurants all over York County, and I can tell you I can go from Greenfield to Centerville in 12 minutes every single day, and it takes me 45 minutes to go those same 12 miles in York County. People love it here. We have retirement communities, and you think about the retirement community that you know near you, I can assure you every single one of those retirement communities is in a major building expansion right now. You see them coming up out of the ground. And when you go to Willow Valley, or you even go to Landis Homes, or you go to Mennonite Homes, or you even go up to the Masonic Homes in E-Town, and you look, people are coming here from all of those communities. We have the shopping center developers. So I opened a bunch of restaurants in Chester County, and I will tell you those big funded shopping center developers weren't coming to Lancaster County, but they're looking at the same trends that exist. And now places like Belmont are getting built here with basically this money coming out of Philadelphia. We also have local developers, you know, like Highs and Oak Tree and others who see this same potential, and they are doing the same thing. They're taking advantage of this future projected growth and economic development that we think Lancaster basically represents. And we're having more kids. When you look at the data, particularly coming from the Plain community, and you look at the number of children that they have, our birth rates are going up these last 2 years. So we know this population growth is coming to Lancaster County. What are we doing about it? So Lancaster 2040 is this great planning process that the Lancaster County Planning Commission has put together, and there are a whole bunch of us that have been participating in it for the last 2 years. But they project that Lancaster County is going to grow by about 140,000 people by the year 2040. 140,000. That doesn't sound like very many, does it? How many people live in Manheim Township, Sam?
Almost 40,000.
So let's say we have 38,000 people in Manheim Township. That's all the way from the stockyards all the way up to Warwick Township and Stauffers at Kissel Hill up there on the hill. We have 38,000 people that live in Manheim Township. That means by the year 2040, and that's only 22 years, we're going to build over 4 new Manheim Townships in Lancaster County. Doesn't that scare you? Where are all those people going to go? What are we going to do with them? Where are they going to go? Are we going to keep them out? Are we going to say we don't want economic development? We don't want to create jobs. We don't want to be able to sell our land and be able to develop it and make money? What are we going to do? And if you're not concerned enough, let me tell you a little bit about what government's response to all this is. The county obviously has been working on this for some period of time, this Lancaster 2040. They're trying to create zones and overlays, and they're advising the municipalities. But how many municipalities do we have in Lancaster County? Do you know? Yeah, it's over 60. So we have 60 different municipalities who each control their own rules. They all make up their own guidelines about where they want to build, what they want to do, and they can change those rules with a new set of commissioners. Within those 60 municipalities, how many zoning overlays do you think we have? Does anybody know? You guys are the knowledge experts. We have 504 zoning overlays. So if I have conservation zoning up in northern Lancaster County and I have conservation zoning, for instance, down in southern Lancaster County, the rules are very different. One says you can take 10% of the land and you can subdivide that off. So if you have a 300-acre tract, take 10% of that land, that's 30 acres, do 31-acre lots on that. And others say you can't build at all. We have all these different issues at play. And so I just keep asking, what are we going to do? And I get really, really depressed and really, really upset. And if that isn't bad enough, we look back over the last 15 years. For every 4.4 people we've added in population growth, we have consumed 1 acre of land. So for every 4.4 people that's gone up, we've taken 1 acre of land and we put it into housing and commercial development, okay? So if we have 140,000 new people, one of you can get your calculator out and do the math, and we do it at 4.4 people per acre, how many acres of land is that going to eat up in Lancaster County? The answer is close to 30,000. So we say, well, you know, 30,000 acres, what's that? We only have 600,000 in 22 years, another 30,000 acres. Well, we'll still have our rural flavor, we'll still have all that. The government was smart. They came together and they basically said, we're going to create urban growth boundaries. So we want all that development to happen inside the urban growth boundaries. But guess how many acres there are yet to be developed inside the urban growth boundaries? Less than that population has. That was going to be about 30,000 acres. So we know things have to change. And so my prophetic voice for you today is that change has to come, and we as a community have to own that change. And there isn't a person in this room that doesn't know what we have to do differently. I could ask any one of you and you could tell me. We have to increase density, okay? We can't keep spreading out. We have to increase height. We have to be able to build up, and we have to be able to put more people in closer places, or we will shut down development and we will stop economic growth, and that isn't what we want to do. In this community, we're smart enough, we know how to do both ends. And so this is very sobering for me, and I wanted to just share that with you before I even talked about the Conservancy, because we have solutions, and when I get depressed and when I get upset and I think to myself there isn't anything we can do, I look at what we've already done. And we're not doing it at the government level as much as what we're doing it in the private organizations level. Take the Lancaster Farmland Trust. They're our sister organization. We have today in Lancaster County 374,000 acres of farmland. That's about 60% of all of our land is in farmland today. We've preserved over a third of that. We have set that land aside and said that's so important we're not going to develop it. Now, we've used a lot of public money to do that, and we've used some private money, but we've done that. We've done good. And I think the Lancaster Farmland Trust deserves a round of applause, if you guys would be willing to say that. Now, the Farmland Trust, obviously, is private land, though. We're taking money and we're giving it to private owners, so it's not open to the public. You can't benefit from it. You can't go walk on it. You can't fish and hunt on it or anything. So it's a little bit different when you're dealing with conservation easements. So the second organization that is really looking at this land is your Lancaster County Conservancy. And while we do conservation easements to protect private woods, so if you had woods on your tract of land and you had 50 acres and you wanted us to make for sure it always stayed in nature, you could come to us. But we've gotten to the place that we don't trust the government, we don't trust those zoning rules, and we say that those special rural wooded nature spots that we all know and love are so important. We actually, the only way to guarantee them is to put them in a land trust, go out and buy them, and protect them forever. So when you look at my opening slide here today, you can see that what we do is we are focused on the natural lands. We're focused where the fishermen want to go, we're focused where the hunters want to hunt, and where you, in your job, who gets really tired of looking at a computer screen and talking to people all day and going home and fighting with your spouse or dealing with your kids, that you can go and actually escape into nature. And that's what we do. We are focused exclusively on those natural areas in Lancaster County. And today we have 46 preserves. We have over 5,208 acres that we've actually bought. We have a lot more that are eased, but these are lands that you can end up going and hiking. And so when it comes to our mission, and our board just finished this plan, so you're getting the sneak peek, we changed it. But what we do is we provide wild and forested lands, and you can't talk about saving land without talking about cleaning water. And I want to affirm the Rotary group, because your Rotary International has said water is really important and trees are really important, and they've asked every single one of you to plant a tree. We think that's great, but we also think that we need to protect the trees we already have, because if we clear cut all these trees and then we plant a riparian buffer over here and the next property owner cuts it all down, we haven't gained anything. So we think that we need to clean the waterways for our community. Do you folks know in Lancaster County how many of our streams are impaired right now? They're considered impaired because they don't support aquatic life at a level that we can have healthy fish in there. We have some junk fish like carp and catfish, but trout couldn't live. It's over 60% of our streams. And that is a real bad reputation to have, and we need to do more. So the Conservancy is very much involved with that. And then this forever is what we do, land protected in perpetuity. So there's three words: land, water, and community, and this is what we are focused on. So now I'm just going to give you my tiny little overview of what it is we do in each of those areas, and these will give you a little snapshots into what the Conservancy really is all about. But our highest priority is to acquire land now. This development pressure I talked about it, my friends, is coming. The prices of land are going up every year. We used to be able to, just 5 years ago, be able to buy forested land at about $4,000 an acre. Now it's up over $7,000 an acre, and it's going up all the time. We have no more land in Lancaster County. The population growth is coming, and if we don't go out and try and protect it now, we will never be able to afford to do it later. And we're at this place in a bell curve. Let me see if I can explain this. Every community goes through this. When you live out in western Pennsylvania, or you live up in Potter County, you don't really care a lot about land conservation. There's 5,000 people, and there's 500,000 acres, and you don't really care about land conservation because you don't have any development pressure. And then there are places like Delaware County or King of Prussia, and you have all the land is completely built out. And there, lots of people care about land protection, but you can't afford to do it because everything is built. It's like you can't go take private land for eminent domain to protect nature areas anymore. They're already gone, and you can't do it. But Lancaster County is at this perfect place in the bell curve where we have the population coming, we have the land that's available and affordable, and we have to protect it now. And so this issue of going out and protecting land takes big dollars. It takes big partners. You have to go to Washington sometimes to get some capital. You have to motivate and energize people in order to be able to contribute, because protecting land and buying land is very expensive, particularly when you're doing it for the public good. The second thing about us is we want to do this in Lancaster County, but there is this amazing river. And I'm going to talk about that river in just a couple of minutes, but that amazing river has land on both sides. And so if you ever go to the Northwest River Trail and have ridden from Columbia up to Bainbridge on your bicycle, you look across the river and you see these beautiful wooded mountains. It's up there where WGAL has their Super Doppler 8. You drive it along on Route 30, but it's that mountain off to the right. We see that when we're in Lancaster County, and it's our view shed. And so because it's our view shed, we at the Conservancy have said we need to protect that land too. And we wouldn't be doing it, obviously, if there was someone in York to do it, but York doesn't have a conservancy to protect land the way we operate here in Lancaster. So we've said the river is so important, we're going to do that. And then last, we have to manage this land for two people, two audiences. One is for biodiversity, okay? And one is for the people that want to interact with it. So let's take your typical backyard if we could. If we were to do a bio blitz on your backyard, and we would come in there and we'd identify all the plants you have, we'd identify all the birds we could see in a 24-hour period, we'd identify all the animals, we'd go look at all the fungi, we'd count all the insect species that we could find on your suburban lawn and in your suburban tract that you would have somewhere, we would identify on average about 36 species. You'd have a bunch of grass, you'd have a bunch of birds that come in, and we would end up at about somewhere between 36 and 50 species. When you go to an acre of land in one of our preserves, we do bio blitzes there. We invite the universities to come in, and we have incredible biodiversity. When one we did at Climbers Run 2 years ago, we found over 900 species, and one we did this year, we were at 570 and counting. And we put teams in there to be able to look at that biodiversity. We think that's really important. So we have to manage this land that we acquire for that biodiversity. And we're seeing enormous changes in the land. We're seeing species here that we never saw because of global warming. We see our average temperatures coming up, our plants are changing, the migrating patterns are changing, but we can get into more of that later. The second issue is around water. You're aware that water has become a real critical issue because of the Chesapeake Bay and our runoff and our farms and our nitrates and our phosphates and the sediment that we're sending down the river into the bay and killing off all the shellfish. You're aware of all that. But what we want to do is we want to look at land through that water lens, and we want to use water. So we have a huge festival called Water Week. It's going to be bigger next year. We have $150,000 of corporate sponsors who've helped us with that Water Week. And that's really critical because we want the community more aware that if you run out there and dump a bunch of phosphates on your lawn and nitrogen to turn it green, and the big rainstorm comes and that runs down into the stream, you're doing a lot of damage. And you might not be thinking about it with your beautiful lawn, but we think you ought to be aware that not only on our preserves do we have the new clean water, but we also need to do it in our own land that we manage and take care of ourselves. So that's why we say the waterways both on our preserves and on private property. Last but not least, we have a huge issue in Lancaster City. Most of you are aware of it, but if you aren't, every time it rains, the water overwhelms the system that handles all that rainwater. The system that takes the rainwater is the same system your sewer runs in, and it goes down and overwhelms the sewage processing plant, and raw sewage runs into the Conestoga River, and down the river it goes, and every time that happens, the city gets fined. We do tremendous environmental damage, and so the city has had this green infrastructure plan. The mayor has been leading it. The new mayor, Deneen Sirachi, is determined that we're going to solve this problem, and we're going to do it by building green infrastructure. We are a partner. So we educate everybody around that issue. And that's really critical. And then obviously we have this engaged community. I won't get into this a whole lot, but at the Conservancy we do more when we partner. So our partners are so many. We have partners with organizations like the Boy Scouts. I was with them at 7 o'clock this morning up in Lidditz, and we're working on a number of projects together with the Scouts and with all the young folks who want to interact with nature. We have organizations like Donegal Trout Unlimited who are really big about fishing and clean water. And we have multiple partners like the Audubon and Alliance to Save the Bay, and we do a lot of that. But we want everybody in this room to also get engaged around these issues. And so there's a lot here that we're going to do. And then last but not least, on our principles here, we want to be really professional. When I came to the Conservancy, they were beat up. They were a small nonprofit. They balance their budgets by cutting everybody's hours. You know how that works. They don't really have a professionalism. We want to be accredited. We want to be professional. We have to have a strong financial base, and our new plan is all focused on that. But then this last one I want to share with you, and then I'm done. I want to talk a little bit about this river. And I actually have one of these maps on your table here. When you go to preserve trees, you need to go to where the trees are. And we have an incredible resource, and it is called the Lower Susquehanna River Gorge. And it runs the entire length of Lancaster County. And it has cliffs on both sides. It has enormous waterfalls. It has large, large tracts of protected land. And it is the place that is so special that some of us actually believe we can get it to be named a national monument someday. It has many different owners. We only own about 4,000 acres along this river, but DCNR and the game lands own money, State Parks owns land, and the utilities still own a bunch of the land along here. So what this is our playground. And so you're going to hear a lot of talk about the Susquehanna Riverlands. That brand is going to be emerging as a place that we can set aside in Lancaster that's so special that we'll be able to attract guests, we'll be able to attract employees to come to work in our companies because they can go out to places like this and they don't have to go to Colorado Springs, but they can come to Lancaster and they can get on a kayak and go experience nature. And so these are what we're trying to work on protecting. So I won't go into that anymore because I wanted to allow some time for some questions. But this is who we are, and this is what we do. And we're organizing the community to say, do we value that rural land that we have? Do we value what the trees do in protecting our waterways and giving us a place to escape? Do we think biodiversity is important to the future of a Lancaster County that we love? And I know everybody in this room loves this community. You've chosen to run your lives here, you've chosen to build your businesses here and have your careers here. And so why aren't we getting more engagement around protecting what we are? And the Conservancy is. We are getting a lot more engagement around it. But I just wanted you to know there's a new sheriff at the Conservancy. We're going places, and I hope people in this room are able to stand up and watch and take notice and think, along with me, that this is probably pretty important. When we talk, Tom Baldridge always talks about balance and the need to have economic development and growth, but the ability to protect what we love is equally important. And you can't do one without the other. And I'm one of these believers, and I started with this talking about my own personal experience, both as a developer and an entrepreneur, and a person who believes in protecting land, in saying we can support each other. The developers end up supporting the Conservancy, and I have some heavy-hitting developers in this community who are some of my biggest supporters, and that's the way it should be. That's both and it's not either or. So with that said, I'm open to questions about what we do.